Hey everyone, welcome to the video. We are talking business law, chapter 5, which covers criminal liability, and there's a lot of different aspects of it. This is meant to be just an introduction to the chapter, not meant to replace the reading, which you still need to do. Luckily, this book by OpenStax is a really good resource that you can view the book and read the book in a lot of different formats. They've got it in a online viewable version. You can download a PDF. You can even get a physical book if you so desire for a very nominal price. So a lot of different resources, but of course it's free. The physical book you would have to pay for if you wanted to, but I think more and more people are going digital, and so this is a great resource. So chapter 5 is, like I said, criminal liability. We're going to talk about a few different aspects, okay? And so we're going to talk about regulation briefly. So what are regulations? Regulations are these laws or rules that are put in place by entities created by the government in order to regulate or manage functions in our society. And so as an example, like the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, regulates how much pollution can be put out into the air or in the water, or what type of quality waste can be offset. Like if you're a producer and you've got a water runoff, you have to make sure that that runoff does not have a certain level of pollutant in it or contaminant in it, or the Environmental Protection Agency could fine you for that. And so other regulations like the OSHA, which regulates workplace safety. If they come and do an inspection and they find that it is not a safe and clean work environment, then you could face fines and penalties for that. So mainly the regulations apply to interstate and intrastates, between states and within a state. And so let's talk about a couple different crimes since we're talking about criminal liability. So white collar crimes, you've probably heard that before. These are crimes are characterized by deceit, concealment, and violation of trust. Generally, when you have some type of fraud, fraud right here, people that are committing some type of crime in order for financial gain. So think that, an example I saw in the news some time back now was a secretary or administrator who was, I guess, an accountant, and she had created a shell company or a fake company, and she was sending invoices from that fake company to the actual company she worked for. She worked for a large auto sales company, and I think it was a cleaning company. So every month on the line item, she was sending out checks to the shell company for cleaning services that never happened. And, if you think about it, a lot of the managers and bosses are home at night, and if this is for some type of overnight cleaning service, they may not even be aware of it. I worked for a company one time, and I was not aware that we had a third party come in and clean at night until one night I drove by it and there was all these people, going through offices cleaning. So, yeah, I could see how that could be an easy one to kind of pull over. And this individual ended up stealing about $2 million, and she was spending money on trips and expensive luxury items and things like that. She was getting box seats to sporting events and things like that. So you have to watch what's going on and be aware that if there is a opportunity, people might seek to exploit that opportunity. And really, good managers, you shouldn't put your people in a situation where they feel like they could take advantage of an opportunity, because it tempts them to say, if there's a financial strain in their life, which happens often for a lot of people, you don't want to put them in a situation where they're tempted to take advantage of a situation. So fraud is the intentional misrepresentation of material facts for monetary gain. This type of crime is not dependent on threats or violence. This is where you deceive people. An example is a pump and dump scheme where you talk up something, people get excited about it, and then there's this movement towards it. It creates a lot of business activity, and then the people who pumped it up make a lot of money and then walk away very rich, and then everybody else is left kind of wondering what's going on. A recent example that you may be aware of is LuLaRoe. Some of you may be involved in this company, and if so, I'm sorry to use this as an example, but it's close to me because my wife was a customer, and we know people who bought into this company. And to buy into this company, you would spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get involved, and then they would send you cases of products. You didn't get a lot of decision on what would be included in that product. They just send you kind of batches, and you had to sell it. And what would happen was, let's say that you got in 100 items on a monthly basis to sell, and you're spending thousands of dollars to get those items. So you got that going, and then what happens is you sell through 40-50% of it. Well, you've got 50% of your merchandise left that you've got money tied up in, and then the next month you have to order 100 more items. So then you sell through 50% of that. Now you've got 100 items in the corner, and then you've got to order more items. So it decreased this vicious cycle of where some of the product was highly desirable and people wanted it, and the other part of it was not. And there was some deception that occurred in the company, and the owners made multi-millions of dollars. And there is, I think, class action lawsuits going on now with that company. And so it's debatable as to if there was deceit or fraud involved, but it definitely doesn't look good. And so we'll see how that case turns out. So other crimes, Ponzi schemes, probably the most famous one the book talks about, Bernie Madoff. He operated a 20-year Ponzi scheme through his company. Generally how this works in a very easy example is, if I have a client, let's say the client gives me $1 million, well, I take part of that $1 million and use it for my own self-gain, and then I get another client to give me another $1 million, and then I replace what I took from that first client, and then I use the other client's money to also enrich myself a little bit, and then I have to get a third client to keep piling new money onto it. And Madoff ended up stealing billions of dollars, and it was probably, I think it's the most famous and largest Ponzi scheme of all time that we have. So on record. Larceny and embezzlement. Larceny occurs when a person unlawfully takes the personal property of another person or business. For example, an employee takes another employee's computer with the intent of stealing it. He or she may be guilty of larceny. In contrast, embezzlement occurs when a person has been entrusted with an item of value and then refuses to return it or does not return the item. For example, if an employee is entrusted with a petty cash at his or her office and that person personally takes some of the money for himself or herself, this would be embezzlement. So one high-profile example of embezzlement occurred when at Koss Corporation in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, when Sue Sachdeva was a vice president of finance and principal accounting officer at Koss. This person was convicted of embezzling $34 million over a 5-year period and sentenced to 11 years in prison, as well as restitution to Koss. This person was also entrusted with the company's funds and did not utilize the funds as intended. So, wow, that's a huge example. So talking about environmental crimes now, many federal statutes regulate the environment. Many of these laws carry both civil and criminal penalties for violations. The following federal laws carry criminal penalties: Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Resources Conservation and Recovery Act, Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, and the Endangered Species Act. Some of you may have seen Tiger King on Netflix. I know I watched it, and it was probably just as shocked as you were to see some of the stuff going on. Well, what finally caught up to Joe, what's his name, Joe Exotic, was he had the murder for hire thing. You know, it's debatable how significant that was, but he was convicted of it. You know, and there was an exchange of money, so there was something there. You know, he definitely is guilty of it. And the Endangered Species Act, according to him, he euthanized tigers that needed to be euthanized, but that still creates a violation of the Endangered Species Act, in which he was convicted of, I think, 6 or 8 counts of that, and I think in total had to serve 22 years. So, yeah, and so that's just a real-world example of how violating these environmental crimes or causing these environmental crimes to occur can lead to incarceration or other types of punishment. So some other things to talk about: the antitrust laws. They do not allow activities that restrain trade or promote market domination. These laws are in place to provide guidance and supervision of mergers and acquisitions of companies to prevent market abuse. Yeah, the goal is to avoid monopolies. If you have monopolies that control most of the market, it really creates bad things in our system. It leads to poor performance. It leads to less value for the customers. It leads to price, manipulation and control. Other things to talk about: racketeering. Activities include loan sharking, money laundering, and blackmailing. In the past, terms have been used to describe organized crime. So racketeering is an umbrella term that includes all those things. Probably loan sharking, loaning money to someone at exorbitant rates. That's illegal. Blackmailing, having some type of collateral on somebody that they could use against you. Like if you knew some scandalous news about somebody, let's say it's political season. If I found out some highly, inflammatory news on a political candidate, and I contacted that candidate to say, I've got this news, and if you don't pay me $100,000, then I'm going to let it go. There was actually a book written about this recently called Catch and Kill, where they would find a story, catch it, and then bury it for a price in order to avoid it coming out to the public. I guess Ronan Farrow wrote that book, so if you're interested. But anyway, money laundering is pretty a famous thing that you would know about. It's where we actually use illegally gotten funds to filter through legal businesses in order for those funds to now become legitimate, which they're not. But if I have a drug business, Breaking Bad's a good example, and I make money selling drugs, and then I take those profits and I run them through a restaurant or a legitimate business. On the other side of that transaction, they look like regular revenue, and which is taxable, and then it becomes legitimate money, quote unquote, still illegitimate. All right, so bribery occurs when monetary payments, goods, services, information, or anything of value is exchanged for favorable or desired actions. Bribery is, it's illegal to bribe an officer of law, and generally it's not a good thing. I would dare say that some of our congressional representatives and senators receive bribe-like things that are not called bribes. So I could say, Mr. Senator, I'm going to give you $100,000, and I want you to vote this way. That's a bribe. Not good. Or I could say, Mr. and Mrs. Senator, here's $100,000. I want you to, this is for compensation to come speak at a retreat that we're having in a couple of weeks. We want you to come speak. This is your speaking fee. So, not a bribe, but still a little fishy, right? And so, that's kind of a gray area. And the real motivation for those types of things is to get that individual to do things you want them to do. It's not to hear them speak. It's really, here's money. You come speak. It's a bribe. We're not going to call it that, and we want you to do what we want you to do. All right. So we talked about money laundering already, taking dirty money and then making it cleaning it through a business. Another good show that talks about this is, oh gosh, it's on Netflix. Jason Bateman. I've seen it recently. It's got 3 seasons. Oh gosh, I don't remember the name of it. If you guys think of the name of the show, email me. It's really good though. Anyway, spamming, sending unsolicited commercial email or spam is illegal. Even that may be true. I still get a ton of it. The last part of our chapter is on constitutional rights, and I want you guys to read that part. 1 second. I'll talk a lot. I need a drink. There we go. A little better. But yeah, constitutional rights. It talks about these different aspects of crimes and what are your rights. You do have a right to appear before a judge, to face your accusers, things like that. So go back and read part 1 and 2 of the chapter. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.